He will see in Bakersfield, San Jose. We'll see in Buffalo, Toledo, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. You know, the good news is that according to the latest Pew poll, the majority of Americans are now holding unfavorable views of Israel, as opposed to just a few years ago, it was 70% was favorable. And now it's majority unfavorable, more than
about 53% now, I read.
Yes, according to the Pew poll, 53% of Americans now express an unfavorable opinion of Israel, up from 42% in March of 2022. That was before the October 7th Hamas-led attack. Young Republicans, those under the age of 50, especially, are now more likely to have an unfavorable view of Israel, with 50% polling in that direction. The gap underscores the rise of popular alternative conservative media voices like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, who have been more open to challenging Israel. Jewish Americans have been moving away from Israel in recent years. This trend picked up over domestic differences within Israel over the country's Supreme Court, but has been turbocharged since the war in Gaza erupted. However, at least 73% of Jewish Americans still hold a favorable view of Israel. And after them, white evangelicals hold the highest favorable view of Israel at 72%. Notably, more white Protestants and Catholics now hold unfavorable views of Israel at 50% and 53% respectively. Muslim Americans hold the strongest unfavorable views, with 81% against and just 19% viewing Israel favorably. Just 3% said he was favoring Palestinians too much, meaning Benjamin Netanyahu, with the highest chunk of respondents, 37%, saying they were unsure. More than half of Americans think that a two-state solution cannot be found for Israel and an independent Palestinian state to coexist peacefully, while 46% still think it can be done. Now, do you think... I've heard someone say, so it's been a big shift over the last 10 years now to where the majority of even the GOP under 50 years old are negative on Israel, and the majority of Americans are now negative on Israel. Where do you see this going in 10 years? Is the support for Israel going to collapse?
I think that Israel has normalized itself. You see, Israel had benefited because of historical facts like the Nazi Holocaust, but also the exploitation of those facts by the Israel lobby, including and especially its domestic constituent, the American Jews. It had covered Israel with an aura of being somehow different, that you couldn't hold Israel to the same standards as any other country because of the history and because of the exploitation of that history. I think in the last 10 or 15 years, and especially since October 7th, Israel has normalized itself. That is to say, people are no longer willing, despite the historical fact and despite the exploitation of the Nazi Holocaust, because of the horror that has unfolded, people are no longer willing to hold Israel to a separate standard. It's now, they're Israelis. It's not the Holocaust. It's not the aura. It's just, they're Israelis like any other state. There's a Israel, there's a Germany, there's a France, there's a Somalia. It's just like any other state. That state happens to be committing genocide, and we're not going to support it. So it's become a normal state. And a normal state that commits genocide, you don't support it. You don't support a normal state that commits genocide. And now that Israel has been normalized, people are reacting on what they see. And what they see is unbearable. It was interesting for me, the other day I was on the Katie Halper show, and she brought up on the screen, it was Chuck Schumer speaking on The View, okay? And he's promoting his new book, Anti-Semitism in America. And then he says, A lot of people don't take the attacks on Jews seriously, you know, the claim that there's a new anti-Semitism in the US. He says, but you don't understand. Every Jew carries on his back 5,000 years of Jewish suffering. And you could just see the women on the panel, if I can use the expression, rolling their eyes inside. They're not going to do it with their heads erect. But he's starting with that again. It was striking to me how tone deaf he was. He doesn't understand that just doesn't play anymore. That just doesn't work its magic like it used to. He doesn't understand that in the face of what's happening now in Gaza, maybe that's not the right tune to be playing. And the other thing that struck me was, you know, the difference in age between me and Chuck Schumer is only 4 years. But it was as if he were 90 years old. He's reading from a playbook that is old. It doesn't work anymore. And that's what I think the polls show. Israel has normalized itself as a state, and this normal state happens to be committing genocide. And just like we don't like other states that commit genocide, we don't like this state.
Hey, we'll see you in Bakersfield, San Jose. We'll see you in Buffalo, Toledo, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets.